Welcome everyone to this webinar on EDGY. My name is Kevin Bowles. I'm the product owner of Enterprise Architecture at Qualiware. I'm fortunate to be joined by some of my colleagues, specifically Martin, who will be demonstrating how to work with EDGY using Qualiware X. I'm especially excited to welcome our speakers, Wolfgang and Milan, who are both presidents at the Intersection Group. And they will be today introducing us to EDGY, which is designed to connect people and their perspectives, disciplines, and conversations. I'll reserve 10 to 15 minutes at the end of the webinar to answer as many questions as possible within the allocated hour. If I could please request that you type your questions in the Q&A feature in Teams. In that way, we can still reach out to you with answers if we run out of time and don't have an opportunity to answer the question on the call. So with that being said, I welcome Wolfgang and Milan to introduce us to EDGY. Thank you.
So thanks, Kevin, for the introduction. When creating the slides, I found I have a bit of an echo. I don't know why. Maybe no, it works. Yeah, okay. When we created the slides, I found this picture to be quite suitable for the state of the art of enterprise architecture, right? So it's somehow big, it's somehow gray, and it has been coined by Zachman and so on almost 40 years ago. And the question is, what have we achieved as a discipline so far? We have achieved some improvements, of course, mostly about IT, but still I see enterprise architecture as it is today as something big, something somehow gray, but at least there's some light on the horizon, so there might be some hope. And my personal career in enterprise architecture started in 2006, and I was the big enterprise architect in the room. It took me some years to find out that I've never really architected enterprises as a whole. So still after 40 years, enterprise architecture all too often is seen as a technical discipline, as a complicated discipline, somehow isolated in a very specialized community. And to change that, 4 years ago, I joined forces with Milan, who will do larger parts of the presentation, and we founded Intersection Group. We are a not-for-profit association based in Austria. So according to Austrian law, we are truly not-for-profit with the only goal, so that's the mission, the purpose of our association, to help people create better enterprises. So we are here to speak on behalf of Intersection Group. We will have a couple of slides at the end to say who we are. Maybe that's not of your highest interest, but we are quite passionate about this goal. And one motivation was to make a step out of some frustration I've had as an enterprise architect, to rethink enterprise architecture and make it more collaborative and connect it better to design. And so, as I mentioned in the beginning, even after 40 years of enterprise architecture, most enterprise IT landscapes look like that. Yeah, you have hundreds or thousands IT systems connected by thousands or 10,000s of interfaces. And the idea of modularization is not really present, even after some decades of DDD and so on. So modularization is key, but the reality is not many enterprises, even the IT landscapes, look much better than this ball of mud, of course. And the question is, why could this happen? We've started our work 40 years ago, we can say that. And we at Intersection Group and with EDGY, that's the paradigm behind EDGY, believe that enterprises currently are seen and co-designed from many disciplines. Maybe some of you know this famous story of 6 blind men and an elephant, and I found this quite suitable, right? So we could say for a software architect, an enterprise looks like a tree, and the process manager thinks like it's a snake. And then there's organizational designers. That's a community as well. Service designer coming more from the outside, and they say, okay, it's a spear, and so on. And on top, you have the CEO and the management riding the elephant, managing it in a certain direction. So we must be aware, and that's maybe my finding of this little story, that we are not the only designers and architects of the business. There are several disciplines, and many of them don't really understand what we are doing. We are so isolated, and that's what EDGY is about, right? It's about co-designing the whole elephant, involving a broad range of disciplines. We have many architects and not as much collaboration. I like this picture as well. Yeah, I see a lot of ignorance. We've read a lot of books in surrounding disciplines like service design, brand design, organizational design. And when you do that, it's astounding how ignorant disciplines are with each other. Each discipline has a terminology, right? We love our business capabilities. They love their processes, and they love their services and customer journeys and so on. Every discipline specializes on a certain part of the elephant, and this kind of ignorance is what we want to bridge with our work on EDGY in Intersection Group. And still, after these 4 decades of enterprise architecture, I think enterprise architecture is still an IT discipline. It's called enterprise. Enterprise is everything, right? Usually, most of enterprise architect approaches I've seen are dealing somehow with software application portfolio management, connecting it to capabilities maybe, but not really redesigning organizations, redesigning capabilities and so on. So it's still an architecture domain. What we want to see is that the people working in enterprise architecture broaden their view and maybe move away from this car to see the whole, not only the bottom of the car, not only the technical appliances that are mounted in the bottom of this car. So it's still an architectural technology domain. And we all know this factor, right? On the one hand, there's the business, and they always blame the IT department. Yeah, you own the IT. You are the owner of your mess. And on the other side, you have the IT people that say, no, we only implement your requirements. It's your systems and so on. And the ownership, the accountability question of who owns the IT architecture and who owns the business architecture is not really solved. And we believe that business should be accountable for their architecture, including their applications. That changes a lot. And that leads to constant botchings. Yeah, so like this one. So we all know that IT landscapes are constantly botching because of time to market things, because maybe business people don't really understand architectural topics. They don't really understand the mess we are all living in, and they don't feel accountable. Yeah? So we need to implement the next plug and do some botching and so on. So that's maybe one problem statement. Yeah? That's what made me quite frustrated after 15 years of doing enterprise architecture and motivated me together with Milan to found this association and to create a fresh view on enterprise architecture / design. And EDGY, what we're talking about today, is our product that helps to do that. So how to overcome those problems? What's our approach to overcome this thing? And all of these 3 things I'm presenting right now are part of EDGY, are part of our product. So that's maybe the mindset, deep beliefs, values we believe that must change to enable a true enterprise design approach that spans many disciplines. And one, redefine the enterprise architecture role. So it's more, we see it more as a facilitation of many co-designers. So there are many brilliant people, service designers and organizational designers out there. You simply need to put off your crown and say, okay, I'm just one of the other pawns here on this chessboard. So let's work together. Let's collaborate. Maybe I do some drawing, some facilitation of workshops, but it's your model. It's not my capability map. It's not my IT landscape diagram. It's ours. I draw it, so I'm the pencil, and I invite meetings, bring together the right group of people. And it's more, we believe it's more facilitation and a design role and an architecture role. So somewhere in between topics, but it's definitely not the one centralized department that has the power. We never had the power to really architect the enterprises. So it's more like this guy. You need strong social capabilities. You need to build trust and so on. And number 2, we believe that the only way to bridge disciplines is beauty, is art. So in all of our work, art and beauty and colorful thinking is present. That's why EDGY, we believe, is concise and beautiful and hopefully as usable as an iPhone. That was our goal, because we think that current enterprise architects diagrams and methods are way too complicated to be connected with the business people. They don't like Archimate, for example. You can model Archimate, you can do that, but we believe it's a good substantial basis, but you need maybe a simplification layer. You need the user interface like an iPhone, right? So there can be some Archimate there. The reality of implementation is complex, but to co-design means we must connect people and give them a user interface to their architecture that they get able to co-design. That's a prerequisite, we believe. And then number 3, widen your view. So it's not only about technology. Widen your view could mean have a look at the ecosystem, right? If you're an elephant and you only focus on inside out, on the engineering part of the IT, on the operations of the business, that's where we're coming from, this inside out viewpoint. Maybe you don't see the lion here, right? And some other competitors, some disruptors in the ecosystem, some new competitors. That means connect to the people looking more outside in, connect to the service designer, user experience people. That's very important in our approach. Get out of the technology ivory tower, look into the ecosystem, look into what's going on outside of the IT and even outside of your company. So that was the teaser, and Milan will explain how we think we should do that.
So it's a good thing to say, well, these are these 3 things that we want to change, right? Or that would need to change to make enterprise architecture more, I guess, already more interesting, but also ultimately more successful in what it's set out to do. But how do we do that? So for that, we need to look at what is it actually that we want to do, right? And so we often ask in our courses and in our webinars when we have a little bit more time, we ask everyone, why do you think Amazon is so successful, right? And you see that they are also selling our book. That's not the reason why they are so successful, but in that book, we have basically collected these patterns. And you see, if you can read this little text below, are you an enterprise architect and you think you have limited impact on decisions? Are you a service or UX designer? Are you a business analyst? And so that is hinting at what we think needs to happen to make enterprises successful. And just saying that, that it's also not an easy question. Of course, Amazon is commercially successful, right? But there are many people that we meet in our community and around it that think that maybe at certain things, Amazon isn't really the best example of an enterprise. But if we just now assume for a minute, Amazon is really successful at what they are doing. And if we now had asked you, as we do so many times, what is the reason? Why is Amazon so successful as an enterprise at what they are doing? We get a bunch of answers. So Wolfgang, if you change to the next slide. For example, people think, oh, it's about experimentation. So they test and try a lot. Or it's about a clear vision. Or it's because they are customer oriented or maybe even customer obsessed. Maybe it's just really easy to buy and find things like the effective user experience. They have a powerful brand. They have a strong leadership. The business model is disruptive in the sense that they don't actually just sell their own products, but they evolve into a marketplace, and they also launched AWS. There might be also people saying, no, you know what? The reason is the adaptive microservice architecture. And that's fine. Maybe these things help creating those other things, right? So you have the optimized operational processes, the great customer experience, the information architecture that you actually find that book. My first book, Intersection, is actually classified by the publisher for some mistake reason as bioinformatics. I can show you that it's not bioinformatics, but on Amazon you can find it because they ignore that, because they have their own information architecture that actually works. So you see what we are getting at here. There's not one reason, right? There are many reasons, and there are all these factors, and they actually work together to deliver something that makes that in the end you can go there for almost anything. You can type in, you find it, they deliver it. The person at the door actually gives it to you and not to someone else, and so on and so on. So if we want to navigate this, we need to kind of start understanding each other, right? So all these people working on these different aspects, so the architects, the product and experience designers, the brand people, the organizational change and development people, all of these people, we have to kind of get to this understanding that ultimately we are working on the same thing. We are trying to make this thing as a whole, this enterprise, better at what it is trying to do. And this is where EDGY comes in. So these icons represent one important part of EDGY. But let me maybe get back to what the definition of enterprise is. When we talk about an enterprise, there's a lot of definitions out there, some of which are more useful than others. So we are going to use an example to explain or to outline what we mean by an enterprise. If you go to the next slide, which is actually kind of made for kids. No, the one with the train was correct. There we go. So an enterprise, and this is this is just a little picture that you can download from a local train company in Germany, and you can give it to your kids and they can color it. There's a non-colored version. So this is showing an enterprise, right? So we have here a train station. We have obviously we have trains. We have people running around, people wanting to go somewhere with the train, people arriving, people leaving. You have other companies there. You have the taxi company. You have different channels like point of sales. You can buy food. There are some people dancing, So the point here being is enterprises consist primarily of people, and these people are doing stuff. They are pursuing outcomes, right? They want to go from A to B. They want to get food on the way. They want to sell tickets. They want to drive efficiently, and so on and so on. And to pursuing these outcomes, they do certain activities, and they make use of certain objects. Like maybe if you look closely, there's a handcuff being used. There's a ATM. There's all sorts of things. Of course, the train, the station itself are also things. So it's a bit of an obvious statement, right? So enterprises consist of people pursuing outcomes, doing activities, and using objects. But this is kind of the basis of EDGY, because we say that with these 4 elements, we can basically capture and describe any enterprise. And Wolfgang had mentioned Archimate before. There are more elements in Archimate. We think those 3 are actually sufficient. But then how do we connect this to the actual questions? Because the question that EDGY or that EDGY practitioners try to answer is usually not what is an enterprise, right? It is how do we make this enterprise better? And this is where the facets and also the icons that you have seen before come in. So we think that any enterprise has these universal characteristics, and you can use them on any part of the enterprise. So any enterprise has an identity. Any enterprise is asked, why are we actually here? Who are we? Who are we opposed to someone else? And what matters to us more than to other people? That's the identity, the culture, and basically in French, we would say the raison d'être of the enterprise. And then you ask at the bottom, what are we actually doing? What is coming out of our activities? What is the benefit that we create for people? How do we appear or strive to appear in their lives as customers, as maybe investors, or even employees? So that's the experience facet. So what is our role in people's personal lives? And then finally, we have the architecture facet, which is kind of the central point of view of most of the prevalent EA approaches and frameworks, where we are asking, how does everything work? How are we operating? And with these operations, what can we actually do? What are we capable of achieving? So if we combine this, we take these very, very simple elements and we take these fundamental questions or facets. So we get to this picture, EDGY has people in the center. We have outcomes they pursue. We have activities they are doing, and we have objects that they are using. And around that, you have these colors, you have these lenses, these perspectives that you can apply on any configuration of enterprise elements that you see, that you want to change, or that you imagine to be there in the future.
Maybe one sentence to ask, to add. People for us are employees and customers and partners and maybe some authorities from the government and so on. We have some kinds of people in EDGY, but for me this is a big statement because it's not only about us as a company. We don't architect the corporation, we architect including trying to understand other people and their tasks and their experience and so on. So that's the way how we look at the ecosystem and the company with a very simple model.
Yeah, and so if we combine all of that, you get basically EDGY. I put also into the meeting chat the link. It's enterprise.design where you can dive into this. So basically we take these very generic elements on the left, outcomes, activities, objects, and people, and we make them more specific to answer those important questions about enterprises with a configuration of elements. So again, going through in the identity facet, we ask, what's our purpose? What's the story that we tell ourselves that we have all in our minds? And how can we put that into content that then people understand and can relate to? And in order to pursue our purpose and to bring our story to life and to get beyond just content describing what we want to do, we have to organize ourselves. We have to build an organization, right? So we have to organize ourselves in teams that then do something, and that something is leading into the architecture. So these organizational teams run processes in order to bring capabilities to life. So something that we can do using assets being machines, I don't know, phones, but also physical things, buildings, and so on. So the architecture of the enterprise is kind of operationalizing and bringing this organization and bringing also this identity and purpose to life, which will hopefully result in something that comes out, which is a product. That product is enabled by those capabilities and comes out of these processes and is dependent on orchestrating people and assets. And then that product hopefully will appear in people's journeys and supporting some of their tasks. Task is something that someone might want, someone that Wolfgang just mentioned, right? A customer, but maybe also an employee or a candidate or an investor. So all of these people have tasks, go through journeys and interact with the enterprise via certain channels. And if that product is great, that journey is very memorable, or maybe not. It depends whether you are the tax office or Disneyland, if you want it to be memorable or not. That will reflect, hopefully positively, on your brand, which is the reflection in people's experiences of your identity. And yeah, and as you see, we have these little shapes. The shapes are the same as the base elements on the left. So everything squarish is an object. Contents, organizations, brands, channels, assets are objects. Everything round is some kind of an outcome. A purpose is an outcome we pursue. A task is an outcome someone personally wants to pursue. A capability is something that we can do because we have everything in place. So it's the outcome of our architecture. And everything that is basically this flesh or no, that's French, arrow and fish form is an activity. So something going on. Our stories, our processes, and also people's journeys. And with that, we can express certain elements, combinations of elements. We can look into one facet, we can look into those intersections between them, and we can also trace, if we take a decision here, if we find like an unmet customer task there, what do we need to change in our architecture? What does that mean for our story and how it involves, and so on and so on. So exactly for these conversations, you have EDGY. But yeah, all of that is quite abstract. Maybe an example.
Yeah, maybe one sentence about the blue facet. Yeah, maybe you wonder, as an IT architect of some kind or enterprise architect, used to IT assets, right? We know there's software technology, there's application, there's data, there's application components, interfaces, a lot of stuff in the IT. So EDGY is not meant to replace specialized languages like ArchiMate. We just connect to ArchiMate. So with the simple element asset here, we cover buildings, machines, as well as IT. So that makes clear that we are not up here for modeling down until the last network component, of course. We know that every engineering disciplines, and IT is one of several engineering disciplines in enterprises. So others are building and machinists and so on. And that EDGY is high level, and EDGY is about connecting perspectives. And what we would love to see, and we already have a connector from Archimate to EDGY, for example, is that people keep using their tools, keep using their languages, but connect it to our platform to help them connect to the other disciplines. So EDGY is not here to replace all the enterprise architecture languages. Okay, so let's dive a bit deeper into the three facets. We have some examples to make it more concrete, right? So the purpose is the outcome element in the green in the identity facet. We define it as a reason why an enterprise exists and what people pursue and believe in. And on the right side, you see an enterprise. You see many enterprises. Maybe let's focus on this Deutsche Bahn train here. Of course, they have a purpose, right? For sure, they have a mission statement. I don't know it, but yeah. So purpose is something can be on a higher level. So it means we want to be nice to our environment. We want to bring people from A to B, whatever the mission statement is of Deutsche Bahn. But what we do, we break purposes down in a hierarchy. So this fictive railway we use in EDGY, intersection railways, they could say we revolutionize transportation in Europe. We want to contribute to people's lives. Yeah, so that's high level emotional purposes. But purposes can be broken down into more measurable operational goals, punctuality, for example, right? We want to have the higher level purpose for service delivery excellence, means we want to be punctual. Now it's getting measurable and it gets connected to goals and so on. So we think of a hierarchy of purposes from very emotional to very executive management style. That's also a way where we want to connect with purpose and executive strategic management topics, for example.
Yeah, and if we have an example from the other side, you might say, well, the task that this enterprise serves, right? So a railway company is bringing you from A to B. And that is a task. But if we then again ask, what is the emotional higher level task behind? It might be this one, right? It might be visit a loved one, maybe your partner or your parents or your friends. And so that's the actual task, right? And so this is something someone wants to get done with the help of railway, but there are alternatives, right? So I could also take the plane, or I could take the car, or I could just make a Zoom call. Slightly different task. But the point being, this is a subjective outcome that someone wants to pursue, and enterprises position themselves to serve such a task. And let's just go through a little example how that then would be connected to the other elements. So we have here a person, Alice, and she has the task of visiting her grandma. And maybe that is part of a longer journey, like spending a long weekend with friends and just on the way visit the grandma. And to book the ticket, she uses this channel website. So here we are in the experience facet. We are describing how Alice interacts with the enterprise. In order to then actually solve that task, we position a product, and that product is going to be used by Alice. It's the high-speed service to Bern. You see the grandma is living in Switzerland. And in order to run that train, and in order to get Alice on the train, we have to sell her a ticket. So we have here just one example capability, which is ticket sales that this product depends on, because otherwise this train would be empty. And that ticket sales is the purview of an organization called B2C sales team, which then is pursuing a purpose, which is bringing people together. And if they are doing that well, if the price is good and the timing is attractive and the product is good, that will reflect or will contribute to building our brand called Intersection Eurospeed, which is embodied in this high-speed service to Bern product. And that brand then again appears in that journey of Alice. So you see how those different elements are connected and how we can navigate different, basically the fabric of the enterprise from these different perspectives, asking these different questions and explore how things fit together across disciplines and across these perspectives.
Because today it's more about the enterprise architecture community. We will dive a bit deeper in the architecture facet, and also, so what are the elements here we have in the blue in the architecture facet? We mentioned them in 10 minutes ago or so. So we have capabilities. For us, they are really a big concept. I'm not always super happy how they are used in practice, but we have separate webinars on this topic. For us, capabilities are closely related to organizational design. So what we want to bring to the world is that people start designing organizations based on capability maps. So capability maps should be co-designed first by many, many people, and organizational structures derived from these structural capabilities. That would be a huge change, because currently organizations are more structured, but that's a topic for another webinar. So capabilities we have in the blue, tightly connected with organizations, and they must be co-designed between business and IT people and many, many people you have in the enterprise. And the reason why we have capabilities is to create products. If you have a capability and you can't trace it to supports this capability to some product delivery, maybe it's waste, and you should remove it. And assets, assets are here, are needed to support, are needed to in our capabilities and to run processes and so on. So we have these three elements in our map and in our model, and we have some maps. So in EDGY, it's not only about the elements. In EDGY 23, we also have some simple maps, and in the future, we will come up with more and more maps. This one, I'm sure this will look familiar to you, because capability maps are big in the enterprise architecture space. As mentioned, I'm not always happy with the way they are doing, that they are being done. But their basic idea is simple. I have a capabilities in a hierarchy. Railway infrastructure management is decomposed into infrastructure planning, maintaining, resource management, and then you have strategic planning and the level 3 capabilities. And you have assets. So Strat App is an application, which in EDGY is a kind of asset. We use label for that. We don't have types, but that's maybe more for the nerds. So that's one map that shows how to relate assets to capabilities. We haven't invented that, so that's classical enterprise architecture, and that's a cool tool, of course, for resource-based planning. And what we also have are processes. So let's assume you have a step of activities. Activity is one of the base elements. A process is a sequence of such elements. We haven't invented processes. We just use what's already there in the state of the practice, right? And then you have some applications, assets. These are all IT applications, and then you can make a matrix and so on. Might not be too exciting for enterprise architects, because you know those kind of diagrams. This is super new when I talk to other communities like organizational design people. And so we must be aware that things that look obvious to our community can be totally new and exciting to several others, like capabilities, right? Capabilities are absent in most other communities, and we want with EDGY, we want to connect and bring it to them. Otherwise, the idea of capabilities wouldn't work, right? And finally, what we are currently working on for the next EDGY version, so EDGY is improved annually. We want to launch a new version every year, so it's only the beginning, the language, is a Milky Way enterprise map. It's only in 1 minute. It's about connecting the dots. It's a beautiful map coming from Annika Cleaver and some people in Sweden, and we use it and connect it to our 3 colors and to our 3 facets. Think of it as you have a step, a sequence of your story. Right? In the intersection railways, for example, you plan the infrastructure, then you build the infrastructure, then you operate the train, then you learn. So in the center, you have what we call a business cycle, or a story, the basic steps on a high level of a company that drives this circle here, this geography. And then you put the purposes to the center. Say, where are the purposes related to which sector here? Punctuality, for example, is related to running, to delivering the trains here. And in the second circle, in the blue circle, you arrange the capabilities you need for a certain planning, for building, for running the trains. So the geography is driven by the sector in the middle, and you order the green, the blue, and the red on the outside. You have the journey of a passenger, for example, right? You have the tasks of a passenger. And I think the big thing with the Milky Way map is that you are urged to think and connect what's going on over time. So when we bring people together, what capabilities do we need? Okay, we need to do product management, we need to do self-write or whatever. So we need certain capabilities to pursue this purpose. And what tasks, how are tasks of these journeys related to this blue capabilities and so on? Yeah, so that's one way that I think beautifully highlights the paradigm behind EDGY, to connect the green, the blue, and the red facet. And if you want to dive deeper, there's a webinar and much, much more to come in the Milky Way. It's a beautiful tool. Yeah, something that will be published in the next EDGY version. Yeah, so that's the end of the content of our presentation. What you've learned today in 1, 2, and 3, just 3 bullet points here. What we want to change with Intersection Group and with EDGY, we want to change enterprise architecture rule from top-down technology to facilitation of many co-designers involving many disciplines. We want to connect siloed disciplines by beauty, and we want to widen your view, and that's, so get out of your technology ivory tower, have a look at the other elements you are not so familiar with. Yeah, widening your view means, oh, I've never thought about the customer task. Yeah, we have some brand people, but how is their brand design, their brand architecture related to our IT architecture? So EDGY is here to widen your view, to get familiar with alien elements and so on. So that's number 3 approach.
Yeah, and just quickly before we jump into the demo with Qualiware, just a few slides of background what we are doing. So Intersection Group is not for profit, as we said before. We are making EDGY. We are also running a community and events, and you're invited to join us. And we are doing publications. Yeah, I just shared this slide deck, and I think before, yeah, the enterprise.design URL. So this is the website. EDGY is open source in the sense that it's licensed under Creative Commons and runs on a MediaWiki and is, yeah, for everyone to use and enjoy. But if you want to learn more about using EDGY, we are having a cohort-based online training in a kind of similar time slot over 6 weeks, starting on October 12th. So just have a look on intersection.group/events if you want to join the training. The book we mentioned is our first book that we published as an association. So if you're interested in how to go about doing enterprise design and increase your impact on the enterprise, applying these 35 patterns, get the book. And in just 10 days, we will meet many people here from our friends from Qualiware in person in Vienna in this impressive setting for the Intersection 23 conference. It's our 9th conference with the topic Creating Sustainable Enterprises. And there are a few tickets left if you are interested. And anyway, we hope that if you liked what you've seen, you will join us in our quest of creating or helping people creating better enterprises, including ourselves in our daily jobs. So visit us, join us, use EDGY, and get in touch. And with that,
follow us on LinkedIn. That's not on this slide, but we are big on LinkedIn. We publish daily. Follow us, please.
Yeah, gentlemen, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. That was very informative. I have a lot of questions as well, but I won't be asking them immediately. Yes, if maybe we could hand straight over to my colleague Martin, who will be showing us how to work with EDGY using Qualiware. Thank you so much.
Sure. Thank you, Milan and Wolfgang, for the presentation of EDGY. My name is Martin Tölle. I'm a business architect here in Qualiware. And many of you probably don't know Qualiware, but what is Qualiware? Qualiware is a software tool that many of our clients use our software to document their processes in a management system in order to document compliance. They use it in a more enterprise architect point of view, managing the whole architecture, the applications, so yeah, the EA can be technical, and in Qualiware you can model all the way down to the bits and bytes that you want, but you can also stay on a higher level. And yeah, for the last year we have included the EDGY language in our tool, and we, as Milan and Wolfgang mentioned, EDGY is evolving all the time, so we are trying to catch up with the changes in the EDGY language, and we are implementing in the tool. What I will show here today is just a brief overview of what you can do in Qualiware regards to EDGY. You can see here, Qualiware basically can help you organize and structure all your knowledge. So we totally agree that creating the new knowledge is a collaborative effort, but you need someone in charge of facilitating the workshop or owning the content in order for it to evolve. So Qualiware can help you with that task. Also structuring, and you only have see the most recent version of a map and not so what is the recent version is also quite easy to see in Qualiware. You can see here the different tiles on what we call a desktop. So I can see the EDGY facets, the EDGY elements. You can see I have here some specific tiles showing that I have some models that I want to look into. I have some models that I own that I have to in charge of evolving. Up here you can see I can shift to different viewpoints. So here I move between the different facets. So going to the green area, the identity, you can see that the three different elements: the purpose, the content, and the story. And then you have the intersections associated with the facet. And of course, we have similar views for the other facets, the architecture and the experience. What Qualiware helps you is that you can see the models. If I go into a specific model, you can see that, okay, here we actually have a comment on this model. So someone has explored the model and come up with a comment on it. And so based upon that, I can easily look into the different type of objects. And if I want, I can enrich it. I can add another comment once I've done my own viewing, and then I can create a new comment. Then, okay, I think this is an okay, what to call it, a diagram. So this is, from my point of view, I think this is sufficient. We can go back here. If I go to the, let's see, the journey board, you can see we can actually find relationship between the models. So here I can see that this journey here is linked by these two tasks, and this is part of this task board. So all these different diagrams that you can create, we can manage the relationships, we can manage the versions of it, we can manage who's in charge of it, and we can also, if we go back to the overview, you can see here that we have a view of how much content do we actually have. So we have quite a much on the enterprise dimension and the identity. But what content is actually being clicked on and used by our colleagues, you can see here. And these other diagrams here, you can see which specific diagrams is actually being clicked on, and so on. I can easily go in to see, do I have any task in the repository? Yeah, I actually have. I have a map here that I'm working on. Okay, yeah, this is very brief, so I need to enhance that. And so I'll go to the web modeler, and here you can see I can add a new capability. And once I start writing, you can see it helps me link to existing objects I already have. So thereby you reuse your object, you ensure that you have links between the objects and you have integrity in your model. But as Wolfgang mentioned, you also need to create these from a more collaboration point of view. So this is also very supported by Qualiware. So what I've done here is that I can actually start creating my capability map quite easy. So you, in a workshop manner, you can quite fast create your map with the for instance capability as in this diagram. So if I just take here, if you have some content from another source, you can just paste it in, and then you get your first version of a map that you can start to improve and enhance, and you can add the organizational view if you want to do that. So it's quite easy to get up and running, creating your first models in EDGY using Qualiware, and the tool helps you with taking care of everything. So if I save this, let's see here, it should be there in a second. Yeah. Then I can exit. And once I have this, we have this fast edit function, because you need to describe the content. So of course now I put in very generic terms. So we have this spreadsheet type of functionality. So what I'm doing here is actually just creating a short description. If I want to rate my importance of the different capability, I can easily do that, and similarly the maturity, and I can link it to all the other content in the repository. And once I hit the save, all these objects are updated with the content I just added. If we go back to the journey here, let's see, that's experience. Qualiware has also a lot of strong visualizations. So if I will hit this domain figure, I will get a view of all the objects that was in the map we just saw before. And if I think this is too extensive, of course I can zoom in and zoom out, and then I can say I don't want to see the task, or I can see, let's see, I think we have something about departure. Yeah, okay, prepare departure. This is this one. Okay, so here you can actually see how this is a journey, how this is linked to my channel, and this channel is again linked to another journey, and so on. So Qualiware can help you create all these relationships and manage it in a consistent way. So it's not just a yellow post-it or visual drawing that you don't know and can control. So that's the main power of Qualiware. And then once you can see, if I put myself as responsible for the diagram, it will pop up in my my to-do list and my overview. So you can have different types of content as shown here by these tasks here. So I have some content that I'm responsible for creating or modifying. I have some to-do list that could be a change request or a comment I need to do. I have my maps that I have created, and then I have these maps that actually some of my colleagues created, but you can see, yeah, this is a channel board. You can see we actually have underneath, we have this, what we call a governance engine, so we can actually control if an object is a developed or approved version. And once it's approved, I can say, okay, I actually like this. So I can give it a rating and say, this is super. So you don't only capture who's clicking on what, you can also see, enable people to comment, and you can co-create, and you can also get ratings of your models in order to improve and actually create the best models you need. So again, looking back to this view, which type of content have we created and what is actually being used. So every aspect of this can be covered in Qualiware, and I think that was my 10 minutes of fame.
Perfect. Thanks, Martin. Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
I haven't seen any questions in the Q&A. I broke the ice by asking a question. So I hope that everyone is able to use that function in the Q&A. If not, I think you can also type your question in the chat. But thanks so much, Martin. So since we have 10 minutes, I'll be a bit selfish and put my question through to you guys. I'm not sure if you can see it in the Q&A there.
No, could you state it, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So from a practical perspective, I'm looking at in your experience, and this is kind of, I suppose, for everyone who can answer, where's the best place to start when planning to use EDGY for enterprise design? Because I'm considering the fact that, of course, in the real world for us, there, when I say us, I mean anyone in business really, there's going to be new organizations who are have an opportunity to kind of start from scratch, but then there's also highly complex organizations where they're federated all over the world, multi-language, really complex businesses. So is there a specific place to start? It could be the purpose, I suppose that would be the logical one, but also is there a specific sequence that you should follow? And for example, if I'm working in enterprise architecture, I sometimes like to start with applications. I don't necessarily go start with strategy and work my way that way. So is there in your experience a specific place to start, or how do we go about that?
I think start where you are. Most people are located somewhere in the organization. Yeah, enterprise architects too often in the IT. Yeah, and it's interesting to start from the IT and then to use the finger from the EDGY model, and then you start with asset, because IT application is an asset, and then you go to capabilities. And what you will find is the enterprise doesn't have a capability map, at least no capability map that is that is used broadly in the organization. And that takes some time until you get this right. That makes you connect to the business. And then you, of course, you go to the why questions. Why do I need the capability? Then you take your finger and you go to product. Then you are closer to product design. Then you get in touch and in the intersection with the user experience people, with the service designer. Yeah, they are coming from the other side. So what we want to see is that people start from where they are, because they are somewhere in the organization. They are specialists in IT or in user interface or in strategy or in branding and so on. So start where you are and try to go through from your element, what you're used to, use the EDGY relations and connect with the alien disciplines, that's what I like to call them, with, for example, in the product intersection. So try hard to move from IT to capability to product. And there, of course, you will meet the product designer and the service UX designers. And so that's for me the natural way. And it's exactly the opposite when you come from the red facet. So if we would talk to the user experience community, I would propose that they start where they are, with user stories connecting to tasks, to capabilities. That would be natural.
Yeah, I would expand on that. It's normally there's not a lot of value in trying to radically challenge the point of view that you are asked to start with, right? So if people ask you to look into applications, do that, and then you will get like quite naturally to the point: who is responsible, who is using these, how are they working together, why do they exist, and so on and so on. And by that you will expose the bias of that original framing. And the same goes for someone who gets a brief like, look into our customer journey. Oh, no, you can't look into applications. But then you find that the reason why that call center fails to address that one customer question that comes all the time is because of an application that doesn't show them the right data or something. And so you will expose that bias and make that link. And that's what EDGY is supposed to help you with.
Perfect. Sorry, my Q&A has decided to stop working, so I can't see if there's any other questions. Martin, is it working on your side?
Let's see. No, it's just no. I can see you had written a question, but that's what you just answered, I think.
Right.
So yeah.
Perfect. Well, if there's no other questions, I suppose I would then like to thank everyone. I can ask a lot more questions, but then we'll be here all day. But I would really like to just take the opportunity to thank Wolfgang and Milan for your time, and for everyone who have joined this webinar. And thank you so much for also sharing those links to the PowerPoint that gives everyone an opportunity to download it. I've already downloaded it from that link, so appreciate that as well. And Martin, thank you so much for demonstrating the practical use of EDGY in Qualiware as well.
Yeah, of course, it just might add, if you're interested, I mean, you can also go to Qualiware. We have a Center of Excellence where you can register for free, and then you can find also more content about the Qualiware tool in general, and of course also how we support EDGY.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and a warm thank you to Qualiware for implementing EDGY. It means a lot to me to see one of the leading enterprise architecture tools implementing our stuff. So that's only the beginning. So we are here to see big things, I think.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much for having us.
Excellent. Thank you, everybody. Well, I think then that concludes this webinar, and hope everyone enjoys the rest of their day or evening. Thank you.